Welcome back to Spotlight, where we feature the University of Central Arkansas's College of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences. I'm Donna Lampkin-Stevens, and I'm joined today for a very special spotlight with Kristin Lewis, who has returned to campus as an artist in residence, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Welcome home, Kristin.
Thank you. It's such an honor and joy to be home.
Was it last year you were a distinguished alum? You've been back some, but how is it to be back in this beautiful, brand new Wingate Center for Fine and Performing Arts?
It's surreal, first of all. I have to come not in the capacity of being a student, which is what I'm used to, but I'm also so impressed about how the campus has evolved. And it fills my heart to know that the Department of Music is still so strong with so many talented emerging artists. It's been a joy for me to be here for this artist in residency appointment, and I'm completely impressed.
So you've been back a few times over the years, but this is the first time as an artist in residence.
Yes.
So I would think you would just be excited and grateful, and you're probably reminiscing about a lot of things during your time here.
A lot of wonderful memories come back. But I must say that the joy is really in working with the students that are here now. It gives me so much passion to be able to share what I know, my expertise, my experiences, knowing that it's going to help someone else. It really has become a second passion of mine.
Oh, that's wonderful. So let's start from the beginning, Kristin. You were born in Little Rock.
I was.
To a musical family. Talk
Yes.
about that.
Well, I come from a family of mostly hobby musicians. However, my mother's first profession was as a music teacher and church organist.
Oh, okay.
I grew up listening to world music, including classical music. I studied piano as a child, as did my sister. So growing up in a musical environment was just normal. But I had never really considered it as a profession, actually, until I became a student here. And it was here that we discovered that my voice was best suited for opera. And with this knowledge, I just hung on really tightly and started the journey. And it's been a very pleasant one. I'm very grateful for the foundation that I received in classical music here at the university. And I still reflect fondly upon my professors and the experiences that I had here, because it really served me throughout my life.
Absolutely. So you grew up in Little Rock, and at some point the family moved to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Where?
A very small town in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee.
Okay.
And then I came back here for undergraduate school.
So you graduated from high school in
In
Tennessee.
Tennessee,
And what made you want to come to UCA?
Scholarship.
Oh, okay, sure. And you knew you wanted to study music, or?
No. Actually, I started as an English major with the intention of going to law school.
Oh, really?
I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then I realized that my motivation wasn't correct. It wasn't something from my soul.
Yeah.
I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted that. But beyond that, it just seemed as if it just wasn't completely authentic. And I thought, okay, well, I want to help people. Maybe I'll go into psychology. And then I realized again that there was aspects to that I wasn't so interested in. And then it was kind of like a revelation after a period of really praying about it, actually, you know. And the question that came to my mind was, Kristin, what's the thing that's always been there? Through everything you've experienced to this point in your life, what's the thing that's always been your constant? Music. And then it was kind of like Oprah, you remember how she used to say these aha moments? It's kind of like that.
Absolutely.
For me. It was just like, oh, that's what I need to do. Goodness. And it felt so natural. There was nothing about it that gave me any sort of question or doubt or strange feeling. It was, oh, this is it. This is what it is. And it was a sense of relief, but then the hard work started at that point.
Well, you're the poster child for young people coming here and exploring and figuring out what they want to do with their lives. So that's
part of why I value the University of Central Arkansas so much, because it provided both a challenging and nurturing environment for me. I was allowed to grow and explore while also being pushed to my very, very best. And that's part of what I take with me.
So at what point did you figure out that you wanted to study music? Sophomore or even earlier?
I think it was actually my junior
Oh,
year.
okay. So you got a
So-
couple years in with
Yeah,
everything else.
so and then I had to kind of start back and start
So
over.
had you been involved in like the university chorus or anything?
That's actually how I started.
Okay.
I started in one of the class voice lessons, so not individual, but class voice lessons. And I auditioned for one of the choirs. It wasn't the concert choir. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was another choir. And while in the class voice lessons, the teacher said, "Kristin, have you ever considered maybe taking private lessons?" No, maybe you should consider that. And so I actually did an audition for Dr. Martha Antolik, and she accepted me. And and there we kind of discovered it together. I had this really large voice, but it wasn't very focused, and she wasn't quite sure if I was a mezzo or soprano, and wasn't quite sure if I wanted to go classical or another genre. But then we discovered that my voice was best suited for opera. And it was kind of a revelation to both of us, and an exciting one. It's like, well, I could just sing high notes? This is great, I love it.
Had you been an opera fan?
Indirectly, not directly. Of course, I was familiar with it, and everyone knew about Leontyne Price and Marian Anderson, but but I'd not delved into it. So it was really like, wow, this is really exciting. I like this, yeah.
So you, the last 2 years were just all, tell me some of the things that you did the last 2 years, once you went full bore.
Full bore, yeah. So I had a scholarship, so that meant I had to be a part of the different choirs. And so that with schoolwork, and then my private voice lessons. There was no free time at all, and I loved it. It was just really, it didn't give me a lot of social time, but that was also fine for me. I still managed to be a part of a couple of the clubs on campus, and I pledged a sorority, and but it was just barely enough time to show my face and those other activities, because everything was geared toward the music building, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. I really enjoyed my undergraduate experience. Yeah,
that's good. Do you remember some of the professors that you had? I know Martha retired a few years ago, but what can you say about the faculty that you had here?
Well, I think that it was wonderful because we were all in awe of the professors, because most, if not all of them, were still pursuing their own careers as musicians, and so going to the symphony and seeing professors there was so exciting. And then even with the voice faculty, the fact that they also did performances, there was all of this motivation and inspiration surrounding us, because we were in awe of everybody, and would definitely go. We went to ASO concerts, the things that were on campus, and treated them all like they were rock stars when they were on stage. So it was kind of our first inspiration. Yeah, we want to be like Dr. Antolik. Her voice is really, really great, or just watching artists who came in and performed as well. I loved it. I loved it so much.
So you graduate and you decided to go straight into a master's program at the University of Tennessee. Okay, talk about that. Did Martha help you get through that?
Oh, she was very instrumental in that. And it was really interesting. It was a peculiar situation in that I auditioned for the Metropolitan Opera auditions, which is...
While you were here?
Yes, in undergraduate school. And I made it to the finals, which was really great. And the interesting thing about that is that while there, I was introduced to some teachers at the Manhattan School. And through those couple of auditions, I was actually accepted into the Manhattan School and given the option of transferring there for my last year. And I went there, I auditioned for teachers there. Essentially, I got in. This is well past the admissions point, whatever. They don't give a very much scholarship at all to vocalists. So that was one challenge. But then the other realization that I had was that I didn't think I was quite ready to make such a jump so quickly. It was perhaps a little bit too soon. I was very honest with myself in that I wasn't quite mature enough to go from Arkansas to New York, where everything is full-fledged. And I believed that I needed a slightly smaller program in order to continue developing. And so I opted not to go to the Manhattan School.
And you know what? That is a mature decision for a young person to do.
But one of the things that I've always said to younger artists when I speak to them is that there's not one way to be a performer, and in my case, an opera singer. The way it is determined upon what you need, where you are in your life, and being very honest with yourself about that. And I knew that what I needed was more instruction. I knew that as well as my professors did here, I still needed more attention to my technique.
Sure.
I needed to be in more of a smaller environment in order to just continue honing in on, what I may be lacking, Because both in Manhattan School, there was even the possibility of Indiana University. These are performance-based programs. So you almost need to come in with a certain skill level in order to continue. And I just knew that I wasn't quite there, and that wasn't that wasn't coming from a negative place. It was an honest place.
Yes.
I believed that I did have an ability. I mean, I was the youngest person who won the Met audition that year, the finalist. I knew that there was promise there, but I knew that there was still more to learn. So I accepted a full scholarship to the University of not Central. I went to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. And there we just continued, and it was the right decision for me. Because what then happened was that while there, I met who is now my voice teacher, and has been my voice teacher for the last 20 years in Europe. And so
Is that Jonathan?
No, Jonathan Retzlaff? Oh, no, that was still in Tennessee.
Okay.
No, her name is Carol Byers.
Oh, Carol, okay.
Exactly,
okay.
yeah. I met her when I was in graduate school, and then I transitioned there, and that also ended up being the perfect step for me as well.
So after all this time, you're pursuing this, and what are you thinking the outcome will be? Did you ever dream you'd be living in Vienna and doing what you're doing here?
You know what's interesting? I was introduced to Vienna while on a choir tour. One very fortunate that the concert choir of UCA did, if not every year, every other year, they would go to Europe and perform, tour around.
With John Irwin.
With John Irwin, exactly. And on one of these tours, we started in Italy, we went through the major cities, and the tour ended in Vienna. And throughout this trip, the repertoire of the concert choir was mostly sacred, and we sang in monasteries and different cathedrals, and it was so wonderful. I felt myself having somewhat of a religious experience with all of the beauty. And by the time we reached Vienna, I will never forget the first time I walked into St. Stephen's Cathedral, which is the huge cathedral that's right in the center of the city. When I walked into that cathedral, it's like I felt like the heavenly choir singing. It was just so emotional, and I was just completely taken over. And I remember saying to two of my friends on the trip, you know what? I think I've been called to sing, and maybe I've been called to become a nun. And maybe I should just stay here, because I just feel like I need to stay here in Italy and just sing for God. And you all should just go on and just leave me here. Somehow I think I'm just supposed to stay here. And my friends looked at me so seriously and said, we're going to call your mother, because there's something very wrong with you right now. There's no way we're leaving you in Italy to sing. What are you talking about? You've lost your mind. We're calling your mother. Looking back, I think that was kind of the calling being sent to me, and me not quite understanding it yet. Because at that point, who knew what was going to happen with my career?
Right.
But I felt when we were on that particular trip that there was something calling me to Europe. And very little did I know that less than 10 years later, I'd be living in Europe and singing in European opera houses and really doing a version of what I kind of thought, but in a totally different way than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you wind up, so after you finished at Tennessee, did you go directly to Europe?
What happened was actually while I was at the University of Tennessee, after I met my voice teacher, every break we had, I went to Europe to study with her privately. Spring break, I went to Europe. Summer vacation, went to Europe. Christmas break, went to Europe. Because I knew that I was learning so much from her. It was the step that I wanted to take. For me, it was less daunting than going to New York and just starting. Because there again, it was kind of like the next step. The next step of intensity of training and study, but the next step of my own personal development and growth and maturity. And so it just felt very organic, because I never went too far ahead of myself. I only thought in terms of, what do I need next? I need a voice teacher. I need to study languages. I need to study repertoire. I need to improve my arias for auditions. You know, these were the things that were important to me, and I just sought those things out. I was blessed with those things and those people entering my life. And so we only focused there. So when I graduated from graduate school, again, it was my intention to go and study with her. But again, at that point, without even the thought of me living there, but perhaps for a longer period of time. And I'm very fortunate to have parents that could, help to support me in that endeavor. Because then I did decide that I was going to give myself a year in Europe to just study as hard as I can, trying to prepare myself as much as possible, and then determine what would happen next. But as it turned out, it was, and that is what I did. I for 1 year intensely, voice lessons, coachings, private tutors with languages, just really full thrust, participating also in as many competitions, lessons. I studied with coaches from the Vienna State Opera, studied with whomever would be available to me. I did competitions in the region, so to say. And almost to the day, 1 year later, I was approached by an agent who was interested on had heard me and was interested on sending me out to do an audition for a small festival in Germany. Of course, I was overjoyed, and I went and I did the audition. It went well, and I received the role, the contract to do that. And so then the agent asked if he could represent me, continue representing me, and that's kind of how my career started, but almost to the day. And so afterwards, I was able to say, Mother, guess what? This happened, and guess what else, And so then there was the determination, okay, so I think I'll stay here. I think I've started now, and I was really blessed to continue. And it started there, and it continued, and the level of houses also increased over time, and so it's been a very blessed journey.
Sounds, looking back, and you're old enough now to be able to look back and say, oh, this is how it was supposed to happen. You see all those signs there. So.
Everything was step by step, and was tailored to what I needed at the time, because there's just no way I could have projected, how it would unfold.
So let's talk about some of your favorite roles. What do you and scenes? And tell us about some of those.
I'm impassioned by Verdi and Puccini. These are among my absolute favorites. I've sung mostly Verdi roles: Aida, Elisabetta Don Carlo, Ballon Maschera, Il Corsaro, Tosca, the big ones in there. And this is really my passion. I think that my voice is more Italian than Germanic. I haven't sung any German roles, I don't think. I've sung some German lieder, but mostly Italian roles. And this has been, I've also performed, all over, but in nearly every theater in Italy I've performed. And so, it's worked out well.
That's great. So, did you have a natural affinity for languages?
No.
So that is interesting to me, because how many languages do you speak now?
Well, 3. English, I'm nearly fluent in Italian, and conversational in German. Okay. But no, it was me being thrown into the deep end on both counts, because I didn't study Italian at all in either undergrad or graduate school. And so when I moved to Vienna, I started with German, obviously, to live there. But then, as I began auditioning and continuing to sing more Italian repertoire, and then received my first contracts in Italy, I still couldn't speak Italian. So it was really this mad dash of having a private tutor who we worked so hard, and I guess it was a fortunate way to learn, because I'd be in Vienna and we'd be studying hard, but then I would leave to go and sing a production in Italy, and then would have to put everything into use immediately, and then come back and study some more, and then with the next production in Italy, again, thrown into the deep end, because there was very little English being spoken in Italian opera houses. I was very lucky to find somebody willing to speak English, and so I really had to be very serious about it, but it's probably how I learned it so quickly, is that there was the literal pressure of not being able to communicate, not to mention the fact that I was singing in Italian, so that also helped too. Yeah.
So what's a typical day now, or does one even exist?
No.
Okay.
No, but I mean, the big things are similar. A lot of studying, a lot of practicing, voice lessons, vocal coachings, and then preparing.
And how many nights do you perform a year?
It's always different. Okay. It's always different because I'm a freelance artist. It means that my schedule is kind of is shaped by the contracts that I have, and so there's never one set of performances. It's different every year. Yeah.
So, at what point did you sort of realize I've really made it?
I don't think that I ever really viewed myself as having made it.
Sure.
I think that I viewed it more as I'm working. I'm in the profession. I'm in the profession. In retrospect, the closest I came to that kind of realization was when it dawned on me that I had reached what had been my ongoing career goal, which was to have sung in all 5 of the major opera houses of the world. And it crept upon me. It really crept upon me because they were just kind of sprinkled in throughout the career, so to say. And so the last of the 5 was the Metropolitan Opera in New York. And it was after that production that it dawned on me. I've sung in all 5 of the world's largest opera houses. I did that. But throughout, I hadn't realized it. It was so, there were no announcements. Okay, now we're at 3.
Yeah.
Oh, now we're at 4. No, it wasn't like that. It was really when I got to that, and then it was really a surreal moment.
I bet.
Wow, I deserve a medal now. No, but I didn't get one. Disagree. No, because it was just my own personal goal. Yeah.
How wonderful.
And I'm proud of that.
Now, along the way, you've done. You've been very good to support up-and-coming artists. So let's talk about the Kristin Lewis Foundation.
Yeah, I would say that's really my second passion.
Yeah.
I discovered a few years ago. It actually happened during a visit home. Then I happened to run into the grandson of a neighbor in the neighborhood that I grew up in. And in speaking to him about his life and his passion about performing, and he wanted to be a musician and all that he was doing and had done, I was so impressed by him that I walked away from that conversation feeling, man, I'd like to help him somehow. Wow. And so I remember asking him, well, what do you need? Do you need money for, how are you paying for school? Oh, I have a full scholarship. Okay, well, do you need money for books? No, it's covered in the scholarship. Oh, well, I mean, what about, where are you going to live? Oh, yeah, it's all in this. It's like, okay. He's missing the point right now. And so then I thought, okay, well, but then I started thinking, when I think back, in my journey, I was so well supported. My community at home, my undergraduate experience, I couldn't have done that without. I received a lot of help. I remember before one of my trips to Europe, I sang a concert, a fundraising concert for me to help with one of my times going to Europe to study privately. I mean, everyone showed up. I raised so much money. It was, and of course it all went toward my expenses. And I realized, wow, I'm really, really more blessed than I imagined, because there were so many people along the way that supported me, that helped me, that were encouraging, that were nurturing, through everything. I didn't take one step of my journey alone, ever, and so I know enough people to offer someone else help. and it first kind of started off with, well, maybe I'll just find a student every year to give a scholarship from, just for myself, just because I want to. But I have this tendency to never think small. And so,
imagine that.
Exactly. So I thought, well, why just one? Why don't I do it for a few people? Oh, okay, I can't afford a few people. Well, why don't I start a foundation and help many people?
Yeah.
It just kind of kept growing. And so again, I spoke to people at home, and there were people willing to support that as well. And so we established this foundation that basically provides resources to emerging artists between the ages of 18 and 25. And it's variations on basically what I experienced. And I try to tailor it as much as possible based upon what the needs are. So some of the grants are just scholarship, and then I also afford a singer to come to Europe and basically have a week of my life, in that it's voice lessons and coachings and diction lessons, acting lessons, and then the cultural experience of Vienna. And I recognize throughout this process that it really is my second passion. I really love the idea of helping someone else, recognizing this is a stepping stone in their journey, but recognizing that I had this same thing in my journey, and so it's a kind of circular curve thing.
Yeah, paying it forward.
It's wonderful.
Now that was 2014.
Yes.
And in 2018, you started the Kristin Lewis International Association for the Encouragement and Development of Young Artists, based in Vienna.
Yes.
How is that different?
Well, it started with the realization that in order to fundraise for the foundation, I needed to be more present here, and this wasn't something that I could necessarily do because of my schedule in Europe. And so I had the thought, well, how can I then create something here that could help that one? So the first motivation behind it was with the hope that if I were able to do some fundraising activities in Europe, that would be a way for me to raise money for the foundation here. And so that was the basic premise behind it. But then it's kind of sort of been tailored to be kind of the next step, because that one is a little bit more performance-based. So the idea is that for those young artists that are truly ready to start, they then would be incorporated into professional experiences in which they can actually present themselves.
So do you have some, have you supported some in both?
Not together, but separately, yes.
Separately, yeah. How exciting to see the progression. So
Absolutely.
Can you tell me how many you've helped? I mean, I'm just a ballpark figure.
I think that we've had maybe 5 cycles, if not mistaken. So perhaps 100.
Wow.
In America, yeah.
That's great.
It does, yeah.
That's great. And then they may go on and do what you've done and pay it forward again.
It's so incredible to watch the young artists that have been a part of this foundation. Many of them have gone on to do huge things. I mean, the young artist programs, some have already begun traveling and performing throughout Europe. Others have participated in the highest young artist programs in America. Many of them have won other competitions that were, major. It's incredible, and I feel so proud.
You should. You should. That's great.
That we were a step on their journey. Really exciting. Yeah.
I think that helps you enjoy your work as well, because you're seeing the fruits of your labor there. Mm-hmm. You also are very involved in humanitarian work. Talk a little bit about it.
I like that as well.
Yeah. You have many hobbies. So
yeah, I'm associated with an animal rescue organization.
Speaking to my heart. So.
In Vienna, and that one was actually founded by my voice teacher.
Okay.
And so yeah, she travels throughout Europe in different projects. There's another one that's based in Uganda that helps those who have been affected by the wars, negative that are there. Yeah. And then my foundation. Yeah. So other things. It's interesting that I guess the premise behind all of this is that we all have gifts, and if we're all giving back in some way, then the world is effective in a positive way. We all have a little bit of something that we can offer to someone else, and when we all are consequent about doing that, then the world gets better slowly but surely.
Yeah, I like that. Now, one of the projects that I think is dear to your heart and mine is this Little Rock 9 opera. So what can you tell us about, I mean, we've worked on this for, gosh, I can't remember how many years.
Yeah.
So where does it stand from your standpoint? You're going to sing the role of Daisy Bates, is
Yes.
that? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as I understand, the opera's still being composed now. It's being developed. There's a wonderful team. The composer and librettist are both fantastic. I'm excited about this project, obviously, because it's based upon the culture that I grew up in, and I believe that within the next year or two it will debut. So it's a huge project, but I think it's so impactful, and I'm really excited to see how it evolves.
So have you, like for that, you're working on other performances, but you're still sort of got your eye on that one ahead. What homework do you do in advance, or are you to that point yet, or do you read lots of things about Daisy Bates, or what do you do on that?
Well, right now, the composer and I are working on one of her arias.
Okay.
And so this is what we are actively in the midst of now. I've seen sketches of other parts of the opera and heard clips of it, and I'm in love with the work of the composer, and the librettist is amazing, so I feel that the finished product will be really exciting.
I hope we can get something here at UCA at some point, but certainly in Little Rock.
For sure, yeah. I'm imagining that it would make sense for the debut to be here, and hopefully it will be something spectacular.
Good deal. Well, Kristin, this has been lovely talking to you. Do you have any advice for aspiring music students, or really aspiring any kind of students who can finally find their passion and pursue it as you have?
My advice would be to be very honest with yourself, to always believe in yourself, to never think that you're ready. Keep studying, and never give up on yourself. Yeah.
Well, we're very happy to have you here on Spotlight and back at UCA.
Thank you so
much.
much.
I'm thrilled to have this opportunity.
Thank you.
Join us again next time for Spotlight.